Chapter 1. Viral Ruin and Bitter Chance. Elena's name was no longer hers. It had become a punchline, spat out in hashtags and whispered in office corridors. Overnight, the woman once celebrated as a rising strategist was reduced to a meme. Her private humiliation turned into the internet's cruelest sport. And at the center of it all was Adrian. His voice, smug and mocking, echoed beneath every share of the viral clip. His laughter followed her, invisible but suffocating, until it clung to her skin like poison. He had taken everything: her credibility, her career, her pride. What remained was only rage, sharpened into a weapon she vowed to use one day. But vengeance had a strange way of finding its stage. Months later, Elena walked into a boardroom she had only ever dreamed of entering. Her reputation slowly rebuilt in whispers and shadows. She had clawed her way back by consulting for powerful companies, winning trust where no one else dared gamble on her. Now, her eyes scanned the long table and froze when they landed on him. Adrian. He looked exactly as she remembered, confident, assured, untouchable. His smirk greeted her like a slap, as if to remind her that the scandal lived between them forever. But before he could speak, the chairman cleared his throat. Victor, cold and commanding, delivered the announcement with brutal precision. Adrian, your promotion to senior partner is pending, but your entire portfolio depends on Elena's final evaluation. Without her approval, you have nothing. The shift in the room was electric. Adrian's smirk faltered, his jaw tightening, but he recovered quickly, leaning back in feigned ease. Yet Elena caught at the flicker of panic he tried to hide. Her heart thundered. Fate had handed her the blade she craved. She leaned forward, her words soft enough that only he could hear. Remember what you took from me? Now I decide if you have anything left. Adrian's eyes narrowed, his expression betraying not fear but something more dangerous. Recognition. He understood instantly that this was no coincidence. The woman he had mocked online now stood as the gatekeeper to his future. That night, alone in her apartment, Elena replayed the moment like a symphony. For months she had lived with bitterness rotting inside her. But seeing Adrian squirm under her gaze lit something new: a hunger. Her laptop screen glowed as she opened a blank document. She began to type, each word deliberate, precise. It wasn't just an evaluation, it was a blueprint for control. She would not only judge his work, she would dictate his every move. Her finger hovered over send, hesitation creeping in. Not because she doubted her plan, but because she knew this was no simple revenge. This was war, and wars had a way of changing their soldiers. The next morning, Adrian arrived late to the review session. He carried himself with the arrogance of a man convinced no woman could truly threaten him. But when Elena slid the document across the table, his smirk cracked. He skimmed the pages, his eyes darkened. "You can't be serious," he muttered. Elena's voice cut through him like steel. "Every detail of your portfolio, every pitch, every report runs through me. You follow my revisions, you take my directives, or you walk into Victor's office and explain why you're suddenly refusing oversight." Adrian's fists tightened at his sides. "This is blackmail." She tilted her head, smiling without warmth. "It's accountability. Consider it a taste of what you put me through. Only this time, the whole world isn't laughing, just me." For the first time, Adrian had no ready retort. His pride was his armor, but Elena had pierced it with precision. The days that followed became a game of domination. Elena demanded rewrites of his strategies, each one sharper than the last, forcing him to swallow his pride and obey. In meetings, she corrected him mid-sentence, undermining him with calculated precision. The same arrogance he once wielded to humiliate her now worked against him. Yet in private, the battle shifted. Adrian confronted her in hushed tones, his anger seething. "Arrogant online, yes. But here, you're drunk on power." Elena met his glare without flinching. "Power is addictive. You'd know that better than anyone." But when he left, slamming the door behind him, Elena's chest ached with something she didn't want to name. It wasn't guilt, not yet. It was the thrill of seeing him stripped of control, the intoxicating reversal of roles, and beneath it all, the faintest spark of unease. Because behind his fury, she saw something else: desperation. Late one evening, she lingered outside a conference room, hearing Adrian's voice break during a call with Victor. His tone, stripped of bravado, carried the weight of fear. He begged for more time, promised results he didn't yet have, his words nearly unraveling. It was the first time she saw him not as a monster, but as a man. Her chest tightened. For months, she had dreamed of seeing him broken. Now, watching his facade crumble, the victory felt hollow. Maya, her oldest friend, noticed the shift immediately. Over wine that night, she pressed Elena hard. You wanted revenge, and you've got it. But don't mistake his weakness for redemption. He ruined you once. Don't let him ruin you again. Elena bristled, insisting this was only the beginning. But doubt gnawed at her. The next morning, everything changed. At a major client meeting, whispers floated across the room mocking Elena, dredging up the scandal again. Before she could respond, Adrian's voice cut through the laughter like a blade. That ends now, he said coldly, silencing the room. His defense was sharp, unwavering, and for a moment, she saw not the man who had mocked her, but one who shielded her. The conflict inside her deepened. She had wanted to crush him, yet here he was, guarding her from the very whispers he once fueled. After the meeting, when the others had gone, Adrian cornered her in the hallway. His hand closed around her wrist, not with cruelty, but with urgency. His voice was low, raw. If you want to ruin me, do it now, but don't pretend you don't feel this too. Her lips parted, but no sound came, because in that instant, she couldn't deny it. The hatred she carried was tangled with something far more dangerous. She yanked her wrist free, walking away before he could see the storm in her eyes. That night, Elena sat once more at her laptop. The cursor blinked over the blackmail contract, unfinished. She had every reason to destroy him, every justification to end his career in one decisive blow. And yet her finger trembled over the send button, because this wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about what came after. And deep down, she knew, once she pressed that button, there was no turning back. The glow of the screen lit her face, a battlefield of fury and doubt. Her chest rose, her breath unsteady, her heart torn between vengeance and something she refused to name. At last, she inhaled sharply, her decision burning in her eyes. She pressed her finger down. The screen flickered. The war had begun. Chapter 2. The Blackmail Game. Adrian read the contract twice, then a third time, as if the words might rearrange themselves into something less humiliating. They did not. Every line bound him to Elena's control, his reports, his pitches, his strategies, all filtered through her. The man who had once laughed at her downfall now stood shackled by her terms. His jaw tightened, his pride bleeding. You've lost your mind, he muttered. Elena leaned back, her expression calm but merciless. No, Adrian, I finally found it. And so the game began. The first week was a war of attrition. Elena dissected his reports with surgical cruelty, red-inking every paragraph until his once polished strategies resembled shredded paper. She made him rewrite entire proposals hours before deadlines, forcing him to stay late while she watched, silent and unyielding. He tried to rebel, slipping in changes of his own, but she caught them instantly. Sloppy, she would remark coldly, sliding the pages back across the table. Try again. Adrian seethed, his arrogance screaming to resist, but the thought of Victor discovering his failures kept him tethered. For the first time in his career, he wasn't in control, and the one holding the leash was the woman he had publicly destroyed. Yet the fire between them was not one-sided. Every time Elena saw him bend to her will, satisfaction surged through her veins. She relished his clenched jaw, the way he bit back curses as he followed her edits. Revenge had never tasted sweeter. And yet, there were cracks. One evening, she found him slumped in his chair long after the others had left. His phone pressed to his ear, his voice raw. He pleaded with Victor for more time. I can handle this, Adrian whispered, desperation choking his words. Don't lose faith in me. Elena froze outside the door. This was not the man who mocked her with arrogance. This was someone drowning, clawing to stay afloat. She turned away before he noticed her, her chest heavy with a feeling she did not want. The next morning, Adrian cornered her in the hallway. His voice was sharp, but his eyes betrayed exhaustion. You enjoy this, don't you? Watching me crawl. Elena's reply was cold as glass. You crawled me into the dirt first. I'm only giving back what you taught me. His lips curled, half sneer, half truth. Careful, Elena. Hate this much looks a lot like obsession. She flinched, though she refused to show it. He walked away with that dangerous smirk, and for the first time, she wondered who was truly in control. Maya noticed the shift almost immediately. Over dinner, she cut through Elena's defenses with the bluntness of an old friend. You're playing with fire, Maya warned. Every look, every order you give him, it's not just revenge anymore. You're feeding something else. Elena bristled. Don't psychoanalyze me. He ruined me. This is justice. Maya's gaze sharpened. Justice doesn't keep you awake at night, staring at his name on your screen. Elena said nothing. Because Maya was right. The tension only grew. At a high-stakes client pitch, Adrian stumbled on his opening words, clearly rattled under her oversight. Elena, arms crossed, prepared to cut in, but then something shifted. He straightened, delivered her revised points flawlessly. And when the clients applauded, he glanced at her, defiant. It was not submission, it was challenge. She clenched her fists, torn between fury and a grudging respect she did not want to feel. Later, alone in the elevator, Adrian leaned close enough that his voice brushed her ear. You think you're breaking me, but you're the one cracking, Elena. Tell me what happens when you can't tell if you want to ruin me or keep me. Her breath caught, heat rising against her will. She pushed him back with a glare. Don't flatter yourself. You're nothing but my revenge. But even she didn't believe it anymore. That night, Elena stared at her laptop, the blackmail contract glowing on the screen. She should have felt triumph. Instead, unease coiled in her chest. Why was she thinking about the way his voice had softened when he begged Victor? Why had his defense of her against whispered insults still echoed in her mind? Because yes, he had defended her. It happened during a company reception. The room buzzed with laughter, but Elena caught the shift when her name slithered through the conversation. Snickers, veiled insults, reminders of the viral clip that had once destroyed her. Before she could respond, Adrian's voice cut through, sharp and commanding. Say it again! He dared them, his eyes blazing. Mock her one more time. See how far you get. The room fell silent. His defense was unexpected, unnerving. For a moment, Elena stood frozen, her pulse pounding. When they left, she demanded, Why would you defend me, after everything? Adrian's gaze lingered on her, unreadable. Because only I get to break you, not them. His words were venom, but the truth beneath them unsettled her more than she could admit. The tug-of-war between them grew unbearable. Every interaction became a collision, venomous words laced with pauses that lingered too long, anger that edged too close to desire. Then, one night, Adrian snapped. After hours of revisions, he slammed his pen down, standing so suddenly his chair scraped against the floor. His eyes burned with something darker than rage. He crossed the room in 2 strides, gripping her wrist, his voice low, dangerous. You want me ruined? Do it now. Destroy me. But stop pretending you don't feel this too. Elena's breath hitched. For a moment, the world narrowed to his hand on her skin, his eyes on hers, the rawness in his voice. She yanked her wrist free, her voice barely steady. I feel nothing but contempt. But when she turned away, her reflection in the glass betrayed her, the flush on her cheeks, the tremor in her hands. And Adrian saw it. The silence between them stretched, thick and suffocating. Finally, he stepped back, a bitter laugh escaping him. Then keep lying, Elena. Lie until it consumes you. She didn't answer. She couldn't. Because for the first time since this twisted game began, Elena felt herself slipping. That night, the cursor blinked on her screen again. The contract glared at her like an accusation. She had set this trap to destroy him, to reclaim her power. But now? Now she wasn't sure if pressing send would destroy him or destroy her. The war she had started was no longer simple revenge. It was something darker, more dangerous, and far harder to control. And she couldn't shake the truth Adrian had forced into the open. Hate this much did look like obsession. The question was whose obsession would consume them first. Chapter 3. Desire and Betrayal Collide. Elena could no longer separate revenge from desire. Every time she pushed Adrian to the edge, the satisfaction tangled with something far more dangerous. Every time he defied her with that mocking smirk, anger mixed with a pull she couldn't silence. What began as control now felt like collision. The tension erupted during late-night sessions, when exhaustion stripped away their masks. Their arguments grew sharper, voices raised, words cutting. Yet always, after the venom, came silence thick with unspoken heat, pauses that lingered too long, eyes that met too fiercely. One night, Adrian slammed down her latest set of revisions. "You don't want me broken," he said, his voice low, almost taunting. "You want me close enough to keep breaking you over and over." Elena's pulse spiked, her denial sharp. "Don't flatter yourself. You're nothing but a lesson I'll carve into memory." But when his hand brushed hers as he shoved the papers back, her breath faltered. The electricity was undeniable. And then, the truth detonated. Maya stormed into her apartment one evening, her phone clenched tight, her eyes burning. "You've been played, Elena. Adrian didn't leak that video. He took the blame." Elena froze. "That's impossible!" "He mocked me. He gloated." Maya shook her head. "The real leak came from inside the board someone Victor wanted silenced. Adrian covered it to protect you. If the truth had come out, you'd have been finished forever. He let the world hate him because the alternative was worse for you." The words struck like a knife. Everything Elena had built her revenge on, every plan, every moment of satisfaction shattered. Her chest constricted. If Maya was right, then Adrian hadn't been her destroyer. He had been her shield. But why? Why hide it beneath cruelty? The next day, Elena confronted him. She burst into his office, the accusation raw in her voice. "You didn't leak it, did you?" Adrian looked up slowly, his eyes unreadable. For a long moment, silence stretched between them. Then, with a bitter smile, he answered, "Finally caught up, did you?" Elena's voice shook. "Why? Why would you take the blame?" He leaned back, folding his arms, his gaze sharp and guarded. "Because if they knew where it really came from, you'd never have stood a chance. Your career, your life, it would have been ash. So yes, I let you hate me. It was easier." Her throat tightened. "Easier for who?" Adrian's laugh was hollow. "For both of us. Hate is clean, hate is simple. What's happening now?" His eyes burned into hers. "That's chaos." The walls between them cracked, desire rushing in where revenge had lived. She wanted to scream, to demand why he hadn't told her sooner, to slap him for letting her build her entire life on lies. But when he stepped closer, when his hand brushed her cheek in a moment so raw she forgot to breathe, her fury tangled with longing. Their lips collided, fierce and furious, a kiss laced with betrayal and hunger. It was fire and poison at once. Elena pulled back, trembling. "This doesn't erase what you did. You humiliated me. You let me drown." Adrian's voice broke. "And I stood guard while you clawed your way back. You were stronger than they ever expected. Stronger than me." Her heart wrenched. The man she had vowed to destroy had just confessed he'd been her silent protector. And worse, she believed him. But before she could untangle truth from lies, the door burst open. Victor strode in, his expression carved from stone. In his hand was a printed page, damning and undeniable. The blackmail contract Elena had sent. He held it up like a weapon. "So," he said coldly, "which one of you will I destroy first?" The air froze. Adrian stepped forward instinctively, his body tense, shielding Elena from Victor's gaze. But his eyes flickered to hers, an unspoken question, a plea, maybe even a sacrifice. Elena's heart pounded, her breath shallow. The game she thought she controlled had spiraled out of her grasp. And now, with Victor's power looming over them, the truth was clear. Their war had never been just theirs. It was about to consume them both. Chapter 4. The Choice of Fire and Velvet. Victor's glare pinned them both to the floor, the blackmail document trembling in his hand. The room felt like a noose tightening, every second pulling tighter around their throats. "You think you can humiliate me with childish games?" Victor's voice was sharp as glass, every syllable cutting through the air. His hand shook with fury as he held the damning paper high. "A consultant blackmailing my protégé? And you," his glare lashed toward Adrian, "allowing it to happen under my nose? Do you have any idea what this means for me? For this board? For the empire I built?" Adrian stepped forward, His shoulders squared, though his eyes betrayed dread. The tension in his jaw was a storm barely restrained. It was me. I wrote it. I sent it. If someone has to take the fall, it's mine. The words cracked through the boardroom like thunder. Elena's breath caught. He was handing himself over without hesitation, protecting her when he had every reason to let her burn. She had imagined this moment so many times, him on his knees, begging for survival. But now he was walking into ruin with his head high, his voice steady. Victor sneered, his lips curling into disgust. Noble, Adrian, but foolish. Do you understand what you're confessing to? This isn't just your career at risk, it's your life in this industry. One admission, and you're finished forever. No one will touch you. You'll be a pariah. Elena's heart pounded. The man she had vowed to destroy was about to sacrifice everything for her. She couldn't let him. Not after the truth she'd learned. Not after the kiss that still burned on her lips in the shadows of her memory. No, she said suddenly, her voice shaking but firm. The board members stilled, every ear tilting toward her. It was me. Every word, every demand, every plan, it was mine. I blackmailed him because I wanted him to suffer. Because I hated him. And because I couldn't let go of what he did to me. Gasps rippled. The silence afterward was suffocating, thick with disbelief. Victor's eyes narrowed, suspicion sharpening like a blade. You admit this freely? Her hands trembled, but she lifted her chin, refusing to cower. Yes, if you want someone destroyed, destroy me. The stillness that followed stretched until it was unbearable. Even Adrian's breath seemed to vanish from the air. For the first time, Victor faltered. His lips pressed into a thin line as he studied them, both, one willing to sacrifice, the other confessing without fear. The balance of power shifted in an instant. Their raw defiance, their refusal to cower before him, cracked something in his armor. This is weakness, he spat finally, though his voice had lost some of its venom. Emotion clouding judgment. You'll both ruin yourselves with this foolish sentiment. But the board, who had been watching silently from the wings of power, didn't see weakness. They saw something Victor could never fabricate: authenticity. Adrian's willingness to sacrifice. Elena's brutal honesty. Together, they carried a weight the board respected more than Victor's icy control. The tide shifted before his very eyes. One of the senior members leaned toward another and whispered, just loud enough for the room to catch, "Perhaps integrity isn't dead after all." Another nodded, murmuring, "They faced the fire. He never would." Victor's authority cracked. His threats rang hollow, his grip on Adrian's future slipping through his fists like sand. Discontent swelled among the board. Their whispers weren't whispers anymore. They were judgments, sharp and clear. In a final act of fury, Victor slammed the paper onto the table so hard the echo rattled the glass walls. "Fools. All of you!" His glare cut back to Elena and Adrian, his final words dripping venom. "You think you've won something today? You've only tied yourselves to each other's downfall. And when it comes, it will be spectacular." With that, he stormed out, his reign collapsing in his wake. The door slammed shut. Silence lingered like smoke after a fire. Elena's chest heaved as if she had just run a marathon. Her throat was raw, her palms damp, her body still trembling with the weight of what she had done. She turned to Adrian, her eyes burning. "Why would you do that? Why take the blame when you could have let me burn?" Adrian's eyes softened, stripped of arrogance, stripped of all the defenses that once defined him. For the first time, she saw not the ruthless protégé, not the cold strategist, but the man beneath. "Because for once, Elena, I didn't want to win. I didn't want revenge. I wanted you to walk away whole, even if it meant losing everything." Her chest ached with a pressure she couldn't contain. The man who had mocked her, humiliated her, pushed her to the brink had stood at the edge of ruin for her sake. And she, in turn, had confessed everything in front of those who could have destroyed her. The war between them had ended not with one victorious, but with both laid bare. She took a slow step closer, her voice breaking into a whisper. "I wanted to break you. I wanted to watch you fall. But somewhere in the fire, I lost myself. And I found this." Adrian's lips curved into something fragile, almost disbelieving, as if the world he thought he knew had just shattered. "You terrify me, Elena. No one has ever terrified me like this." Not because you can destroy me, but because I don't know who I am without you anymore. Her hand trembled as she reached for his, the distance between them feeling like a canyon even though they stood inches apart. Then maybe we stop trying to destroy each other. Maybe we see what we can build instead. For a moment, time froze. The boardroom, the scandal, the whispers beyond those walls, all of it faded. It was just them, scarred and scorched, standing in the wreckage of a war they had waged against each other. And then, slowly, he took her hand. His fingers closed around hers, not with dominance or claim, but with surrender. The weight of months, the humiliation, the blackmail, the hatred, the desire crashed down on them, leaving only one truth. They had both chosen to burn, and somehow, in that fire, they had found each other. The scandal that had once annihilated her became the crucible that forged her strength. The arrogance that once defined him melted into vulnerability she never thought he possessed. Together, they walked out of the boardroom, no longer master and pawn, no longer enemies. The whispers would follow them still. The world would question them, mock them, test them. But for the first time, Elena didn't care. Neither did Adrian. Because for all the fire, all the velvet, all the ruin and revenge, they had chosen each other. The war was over. And in its ashes, they had found something far greater.